Alright, so here we go with Chapter 7 of The Hobbit, Queer Lodgings, or Weird, Strange, because of where they're about to go in this chapter. So, basically, at the beginning, it takes us back to them at the Eagles' Eyries. And so the Eagles are going to take them down below a little bit, but not too far in, because they are afraid that the humans living there they're going to go after their sheep or whatever, and they would most times be right. So they're going to take them somewhere quiet along the Great River called the Carrick. And Bill asks why it's called the Carrick, and Gandalf says he calls it that. And well, who's he? Well, the person I'm taking you to. And so he takes them to the house of Beorn, who is a large man who is able to transform into a big black bear. And they have a discussion before they get there about him. And so page 106 here in this edition, it says, I cannot tell you much more, though that ought to be enough. Some say that he is a bear descended from the great ancient bears of the mountains that lived there before the giants came. Interesting. A bear that is a man. So a man that can transform into a bear and a human. Still really odd, right? Others say he is a man descended from the first men who lived before Smaug or the other dragons came into this part of the world, and before the goblins came into the hills out of the north. I cannot say, though. I fancy the last the last is the true tale. He is not the sort of person to ask questions of. And so it is that he is descended from the men of this area, who are akin to the men of Rohan, who we'll meet in the Lord of the Rings. And of course the men that lived in Dale by the Lonely Mountain and all that. Beorn, of course, means bear, and is both. It's both from Anglo-Saxon and from Norse. In Norse, it's spelled a little bit differently than it is in the Anglo-Saxon language. But I'm going to go to the Book of Lost Tales here, Part 1, page 23. Or Tolkien... Well, Christopher Tolkien talks about this because the name does pop up here in the story of the mariner Ariel, who becomes Eowyn, if you remember. And, of course, Tolkien in his notebooks, he would jot down ideas and stuff or whatever. From these jottings, we learn that Ariel's original name was Otter, but that he called himself Waver, an Old English word meaning restless wandering, and lived a life on the waters. His father was named Eo, a word of the Old English poetic vocabulary meaning horse, and Eo was slain by his brother Beorn, an Old English warrior, but originally meaning bear, as does the cognate word Beorn in Old Norse, conferred Beorn, the shape changer in The Hobbit. And so, this name has appeared in Tolkien's writings prior to The Hobbit. And he does kind of reuse names and stuff like that from time to time. And so, again, this is one of those. But anyway, so as they go along, he introduces the dwarves himself. First he introduces himself and Bilbo to Beorn. Then he enters the dwarves 2 by 2, and he tells them, as he's doing this, the tale of how they came to be there. And this impresses Beorn, so he agrees to help them. And so he feeds them. And then after dinner, he just up and leaves. And then after a while, Gandalf himself leaves to go search for him, basically. Well, Beorn has gone to go see if their tale is true, and he brings back proof that it is true, that he now believes them, because he had come across a goblin, a warg, or whatever, and he took the goblin's head and the warg's skin and nailed him to a tree, and I guess at least the skin of the warg. I don't remember exactly what he does to the goblin's head, but it's there. And so he agrees to supply them with food and weapons and everything that they're going to need in their adventure through the Forest of Mirkwood, because they're going to have to go through there to get to the Lonely Mountain. He's going to give them ponies, but they can only ride the ponies to the forest. Then the ponies have to be sent back. They cannot go on there because he loves these things like his own children, like they're his children. And you'll notice in his house he has not really. I don't think you can quite call them servants, but there's animals like dogs and sheep and horses and stuff that perform. They bring the company their food and like stuff like that. And the dogs can walk on their hind legs. It's very fantastical, right? Bumblebees that are bigger than your thumb. He keeps honey pastures there. But he tells them, don't stray off the path in the forest. Don't drink from the enchanted stream that you're going to come across. So they leave. Of course, he kind of follows them to make sure they send the ponies back. And then they come to the edge of Mirkwood, and Gandalf is now going to lead them. Now, he had already warned them earlier that he was going to leave. And Bilbo's like, do we really have to go in there? And I'm going to read Gandalf's reply to him when he says this. Do we really have to go in there? And of course, yes, they really do have to go in there. And he's like, I meant, is there no way around? There is if you care to go 200 miles or so out of your way north and twice that south, but you wouldn't get a safe path even then. There are no safe paths in this part of the world. Remember, you are over the edge of the wild now, and in for all sorts of fun wherever you go. Before you could get around Mirkwood in the north, you would be right among the slopes of the Grey Mountains, and they are simply stiff with goblins, hobgoblins, and orcs of the worst description. So here again, orcs are separate from goblins, and you also have hobgoblins. Of course, these are all different breeds of the same creature, so you see why Peter Jackson did what he did in the movies. It makes sense. Before you could get round it in the south, you would get into the land of the Necromancer, and even you, Bilbo, won't need me to tell you tales of that black sorcerer. I don't advise you to go anywhere near the places overlooked by his dark tower. Now, we know that this is Dol Guldur, which is a fortress in southern Mirkwood. But when you read the original drafts for The Lord of the Rings, and you even read original drafts of The Fall of Numenor, even, this is mentioned, originally the idea was Mordor was going to be basically in southern Mirkwood. So it was already in Mordor at this point. But that conception, of course, did change as I mentioned, Dol Guldur is separate. That's the tower in the southern Mirkwood at this point. But in the earlier writings, it was the Dark Tower of Barad-dûr. They were one and the same. He separated them out later. And it's really cool to see all the original drafts of his stuff and to read all these things. Pretty interesting stuff. Highly recommend The History of Middle-earth. 12-volume set. It's a lot of money, but it is well worth the price you pay for it. So I would advise to do that. And so here we are going to leave Bilbo and the dwarves. Gandalf, again, he's left them. So now Bilbo basically has to lead the dwarves through Mirkwood and on down to the Lonely Mountain. And oh, what adventures they are going to have on their way to the end of their quest. Anyway, that is all for today. So I hope you enjoyed this video and all my past ones, and I'll be back possibly tomorrow with another one, the next chapter. I'm going to try to get through as much of this as I possibly can, because I do have stuff going on late next week, and I have a vacation coming up. So you're going to get some videos early in the week next week as well, but then you're not going to see me for like a week and a half. But and then I'll come back, I'll finish The Hobbit, and then take a little bit of a break, and we will get to Lord of the Rings. And I cannot wait to do that. So until then, enjoy, and I will see you later.